essentially unleashed a robot zombie pandemic that quickly got out of hand and consumed the entire world. Well, after the planet was saved, thanks to Sonic and Silver magically healing everyone and virus into the sun, the restoration process began to try and rebuild civilization back to what it once was before everything went to shit. As a part of this, he was recruited to help repair E123 Omega. But even though he betrayed his creator, Omega is still made out of egg tech, and in order to repair him, the gang was going to have to get their hands on some new parts. But where exactly do you get them without going right to Eggman's door and saying, "Hey, we want to rebuild the guy that you don't like anymore, please give us the help"? So Sonic and Tails infiltrated one of Eggman's abandoned bases. Emphasis on abandoned. No death traps, no killer robots, just dusty computers. That what we would soon discover is this strange wooden robot named Belle. Assuming that she was yet another badnik, Sonic leapt right into combat. But even though she did her best to avoid its blows, Sonic stepped on her tail, which activated a powerful kick that he took right to the chest. This kick reflex is Belle's main gimmick, and it is a ton of fun because the writers find these clever and interesting ways to utilize it, like launching yourself all over the battlefield. It feels very intentionally video gamey, which makes sense when you remember that this is literally a video game adaptation. If you go dig through interviews with the comics creative team, you can see that they deliberately try to design new characters with these kinds of gameplay elements in mind, just in case they ever get added to the games. And even if they don't, designing them as if they were video game characters first and foremost helps them fit into the cast in a lot more of a natural way, instead of just feeling tacked on from a different medium. But anyway, things manage to calm down as Belle pleads that she's not a badnik and that she doesn't want to fight. And now they're able to get a good look at her, Sonic and Tails are in awe at her hand-carved oak construction. This is totally different from Robotnik's normal design sensibilities. He's all about metal, machinery, and destroying the environment. I mean, hell, the metal virus corrupted all organic matter, not just animal life. And let's be real, do you think that Eggman has the patience to painstakingly hand-carve wood? No. But despite the fact that she's not what Eggman would normally make, she's still, you know, a robot that's living inside of one of his abandoned bases. So Sonic and Tails assume that he must be her creator. But again, she insists that he's not. And I mean, it's not like they're the only ones that jump to that conclusion. See, Belle wasn't just hanging around this abandoned base to enjoy the creepy aesthetic. She was forced into hiding because the outside world feared and hated her, assuming that she was an Eggman spy. And it really seems like that's what the writers were trying to go for and make us as readers also think that that's her entire thing. Because obviously, we all know who her dad is. Even if you weren't watching a video that's all about Eggman's robot daughter, it's made pretty clear that he's involved. We are all waiting for this polite and innocent marionette mouse thing to endear herself to the good guys and then be dramatically revealed to be a mindless. Play along for the sake of mystery. Who could her dad be? It could be anyone. This whole commotion accidentally activates the base's defenses, but the three of them manage to escape, and Sonic and Tails decide to bring Belle back to the Restoration HQ, which is honestly the least they can do after making her homeless by waking up an army of killer robots inside of the one place that she can call shelter. Even though Belle is extremely clumsy and quickly gets herself fired from the Restoration's workshop, she more than proves her value to the team thanks to being equipped with a Swiss Army hand to pick locks and repair pretty much anything you throw at her, including Omega, which raises further suspicion about her creator since only Robotnik should understand egg tech well enough to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So yeah, even though she's been nothing but helpful, everyone is still super suspicious of her because her situation is sketchy as hell and she refuses to elaborate. Your missing dad, there's nothing shady about her at all. The only person to not have this immediate robophobic bias, though, is Tangle the Lemur, who is just excited to have another weirdo around and bonds over them being weird tail buddies. But after hearing that Team Sonic was going to investigate an egg tower, Belle tries to tag along because she is convinced that her dad must be there, but her request gets denied. Belle, if you are so damn insistent that Robotnik is not your dad, then why are you so determined to go check out one of his fortresses? But if there is even a small chance that her creator might be there, Belle is not going to let that opportunity pass her by. So she takes advantage of her newfound friendship with Tangle to go check it out without the Restoration's approval. This tower turns out to be a pocket dimension with a Doom town inside of it. You know, like one of those fake towns that they set up to test nuclear bombs to see how destructive they can be. Sonic and friends get stuck there, and they can't just save themselves by locking themselves inside of a fridge and surviving the nuclear blast that way. Belle and Tangle are sneaking around the tower trying to pull off a rescue mission, but in the process, Belle witnesses firsthand just how evil and cruel Eggman is, and when she fails her stealth check, the patrolling Batniks completely ignore her, and this is when her situation finally starts to click in her head. It is increasingly obvious. She can deny it no longer. She's the Batnik. Eventually, Robotnik notices Belle, but he doesn't remember building her. So, has this whole video about Eggman's daughter actually been a bait and switch for views? No. That he had built her during the brief period where he had amnesia and was going by Mr. Tinker. That's why Belle was so insistent that Robotnik was not her dad. She was desperately holding on to the idea that there was a shred of Mr. Tinker left inside of him. But now, face to face, or face to screen with Eggman, her fantasy finally fell apart. This cold-hearted man is pure evil. So not only does this mean that her father is essentially dead, but the guy standing in front of her is the embodiment of everything that he wasn't. But there was no time to grieve since she still had a job to do. And naturally, Belle and Tangle are able to rescue the other heroes before the whole tower blows up. And with everyone reunited, she comes clean about her origins, and everyone tries to comfort her. But how do you do that in this situation? Hey, sorry that your dad was actually Hitler. Feel better, kid. But unfortunately, things were only going to get worse for Belle, because she was noticed by Dr. Eggman's former protege, Dr. Starline, and he was determined to study her. Now, luckily for him, there was another storyline happening at the exact same time, with the Deadly Six invading the Restoration HQ, which you can hear all about in my last video. But while the Zeti were causing damage, Starline used the commotion to his advantage and kidnapped Belle. Well, I mean, he sort of coerced her by threatening to murder her boss if she... I still feel like that falls under the broad category of kidnapping. And even though Dr. Starline was ejected from his former henchman position, he was still a massive Eggman fanboy. But he didn't just kidnap her to be a trophy and to admire the craftsmanship. No, Starline noticed that Belle had sophisticated emotional programming and was way more advanced than anything the Robotnik had previously made. And she talked and emoted like an actual person. She wasn't a robot, she was something in between, a little bit different. In order to elicit the strongest emotional responses, Starline deliberately provoked her by revealing that he is the one that cured Eggman of being Mr. Tinker, which, understandably, pissed her the hell off. This was the man that essentially killed her father, and she was at his whims. But just as Belle was falling into despair, the Chaotix Detective Agency showed up to rescue her, but unbeknownst to them, it was too late. Starline already had everything that he needed and made a clean getaway with the data. In the end, Starline never physically harmed Belle, but he broke her heart. Needing some time for self-care, Belle went on a girls' camping trip, but due to recent drought conditions, Smokey the Bear over here wanted to let them know that there were strict fire regulations, introducing us to one of Belle's biggest fears that was never before mentioned, but is pretty damn obvious when you stop to think about it. The girl made out of wood is scared of fire. I sure hope that nothing bad happens in this story. You ever had a sleepover when you were a kid, but you weren't able to fall asleep, so you're kind of just awkwardly left there with your own thoughts while everyone around you is passed out? Yeah, that happens here. So Belle goes for a walk to clear her head and takes zero precautions. Apparently, this robot can't see in the dark and somehow completely forgot that she doesn't have a built-in flashlight. But she does have a lighter finger, which feels like a design flaw for a wooden robot. But as soon as she whips out the fire, Belle gets jumped by a rogue Badnik and is knocked unconscious. Back at the campsite, everyone wakes up to a full-blown forest fire. When Belle finally boots back up, her worst nightmare came true. She was on fire from the hand that had the lighter. Now, luckily, the Badnik turned out to be a good Nick and put her out. In fact, the entire reason that it jumped her in the first place was to put out the lighter finger. But still, this wildfire and all the destruction, of course Belle felt like this was all her fault. But even while panicking and being extremely flammable, Belle teams up with Tangle and this friendly Motobug to help find a missing child, leading to an amazing character moment where we learn that her clown nose squeaks when it's squeezed, which she uses to calm the kid down. Happy endings all around because the kid gets saved, he eases Belle's anxiety because he said that he saw a girl with electric power start the fire, and the girls manage to put out the fire and evacuate the campsite. Belle keeps the Motobug and names him Motobud, and we find out that he is the exact same robot that Mr. Tinker repaired all the way back when he was being held captive by Dr. Starline. And in an Obi-Wan-esque reveal, Tinker had left a hidden note inside of Motobud in hopes that it would eventually reach his beloved daughter. He confesses that he loves being a good person, but he couldn't deny the evidence that he was Dr. Eggman in a past life, lamenting that Starline would very likely succeed in bringing back his original personality, and he wanted to make sure that while he was still sound of mind, he could apologize for everything that he was about to do. But no matter what happened next, he wanted to make sure that Belle knew that he would always love her. This moment finally gave Belle the catharsis that she needed and allowed her to come to terms with the fact that her father was gone and would never return. She felt stupid for thinking that she could make a difference, but Sonic reminded her that she already had, and that as long as they keep working together, they will keep on making the world a much better place. That storyline was called Trial by Fire, and it was written by Belle's creator, Evan Stanley, who has increasingly been taking on more of the Sonic comic writing, while longtime writer Ian Flynn has been taking on more projects, like writing the Sonic video games, reviving the amazing Mega Man comic series, and his underrated indie book, Dragoon. Evan Stanley has been a breath of fresh air in the Sonic comics, and directly based Trial by Fire on a traumatic camping experience that they had. But a lot of Sonic fans write off this arc as simply filler. But let me tell you something, filler should not automatically mean bad. Are you gonna try to tell me that the Driver's Ed episode of Dragon Ball Z was bad? Cause no, it was incredible. Trial by Fire is jam-packed with incredible character moments for everyone involved, but especially Belle, who has more agency in this arc than any previous story. You really feel the sense of isolation she has by feeling out of place and barely even knowing the other characters that she's on this camping trip with. And when it comes to fighting the fire, they're up against not just a roaring inferno, but also against fear and panic, both things that have traumatized Belle in the past. Trial by Fire is the culmination of her character development up until this point, and Belle is forced to overcome her greatest physical and psychological fears. Even this silly honking nose is more than a funny gag. It's a moment of vulnerability during a critical moment with this child who is terrified of her. By working with the Restoration to stop the fire, Belle is able to fully cement herself as a major character in the series, and is now able to be a genuine hero in her own right. And sure, maybe there's not a big action-packed fight scene, but I still think it makes for a damn good story. Now, Belle has a couple of more adventures that I'll be getting into in a bit, but to really understand what's going on, I thought it would be fun to take a little break and have a mini segment here to talk about the Eggman family tree. So up in the canopy is Professor Gerald Robotnik, the ultimate life form, Shadow the Hedgehog. Now, he had a couple of sons that we don't get to know the names of, but we do know that they followed in their father's footsteps and became scientists. And based on this graduation photo, it looks like both of the sons graduated at the exact same time. So they're most likely to be fraternal twins, unless one of them got held back or something and they were just determined to graduate together. One of those sons goes on to have Iva Robotnik, you know, Eggman, and the other has Maria. Maria Robotnik has a rare disease, so she and her grandpa move into a giant space station while he worked on Project Shadow. The government wanted a weapon, but Gerald wanted to use the resources to save his granddaughter. But after the government found out that Gerald was working with an evil alien warlord, they pulled the plug on the project and had the military take out everyone in the station, including
Maria!
At some point down the line, Maria's parents tried again and had another child, but she had the same disease as Maria and likely died as well, but probably not due to high ballistic lead poisoning. Around 200 years later, Eggman Nega gets born as a direct descendant of Ivo, but that's a whole other can of worms that I don't want to get into, but hey, he's human. So that pretty much confirms that Robotnik at least did the deed once. But let's talk about Robotic Kids. Obviously there's Belle, because we've spent this entire video discussing her, and Metal Sonic, if you want to consider him one. And I do, because look at just how damn paternal Eggman is with him. But that finally brings us to Sage. She has been a pretty major character in Sonic media lately. An AI based on an ancient technology that Robotnik sees as his ultimate creation, his daughter, and the future heir of the Eggman Empire. With Ian Flynn taking over the storytelling for the Sonic video games, it was only a matter of time before Sage got introduced into the comics as well. And what better way than to directly have her appear alongside the creation that Eggman hates most, Belle. It's sister time! So at this point in the comics, Belle decided to get away from the Restoration and travel the world with Motobud, helping folks along the way. But her journey didn't get that far because Metal Sonic had gone missing, and because Belle had previously repaired him and directly interfaced with his code, she was the best option for finding him. So Eggman recruits her, and he even manages to say please. Belle is happy to find her long-lost weird brother, as long as Sonic can come along for protection, but that wouldn't be enough, because Robotnik insists that Sage comes along too, which leads to a ton of great character moments where Belle is clearly jealous of her. Yes, she hates Eggman, and she knows that there is not a single trace of Mr. Tinker inside of that bulbous body, but she still can't help but feel that Sage is her replacement, a shiny new holographic model instead of her outdated gears and starters. But even in the midst of this dangerous mission where they discover that Metal Sonic is being controlled by a robot starfish, I see you, Ian Flynn, that Starro reference ain't slick, Sage and Belle start warming up to each other. They have the same disdain for Sonic's terrible jokes. Sage starts to understand that robots are capable of more than just following their programming. They can actually feel things and have genuine emotion. And when Belle puts herself between Metal Sonic, saving her digital life, the two are able to put their differences aside and work together to build a weapon that can save the day. They're even able to interface together and combine their coding to force Metal to free himself from the starfish's control. And the day is saved, finally reuniting this weird family of metal and wood. Belle is one of my favorite characters to come out of the IDW Sonic comics. Even though she was created by one of the worst people on the planet, she is determined to always do the right thing. She might be clumsy and she might doubt herself, but she'll always have her friends' backs. Sure, she's a robot, but there is no doubt that she actually feels like a person. But there's a part of the family tree that I didn't talk about. Remember how Dr. Starline kidnapped Belle to study her emotional programming? What was all that about? Well, next time that we dive into the Sonic comics, we are finally going to be digging into Sonic's newest rivals, Kit and Surge. Like and subscribe because that video is something that I have been so excited to finally tackle. But anyway, hopefully you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully